Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, a new council president takes the helm at what seems like a markedly partisan time in City Hall. We ask Kevin Carrico about his priorities, political proclivities, and plans for the coming year. Later in the program, how a survivor of a cold case crime turned his family's grief into activism and victim advocacy. But first, Kevin Carrico was once the baby of the Jacksonville City Council. He is now its leader, and he is facing a full-grown set of challenges. Here to talk about all of it is the Honorable Kevin Carrico. Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We are delighted you're here. Let's start with a little bit of a biographical dive. You, professionally, your background is in nonprofit work. You currently are with the Boys and Girls Club of Northeast Florida. You previously worked with the Clara White Mission. But before that, you were sort of raised in the service industry.
Well, yeah, it even goes before that with my dad being in the military, in the service. So we moved around every couple of years. That was my upbringing, being an Army brat. So there's a special fraternity of folks that have lived in that life and understand what that means. And I'm proud to be an Army brat and certainly proud of my dad for his years of service. But yeah, after he got out of the military, he became a club manager right here in Jacksonville at the old University Club downtown. And I started working for him in high school, working weddings, working fine dining in the dining room, eventually hop behind the bar, learn how to mix drinks. And that was my my first career path. So I was in hospitality management, country club management, all the way until probably my late 20s. And then I took a dive into the nonprofit world. I just had a tug on my heartstrings to do something a little more meaningful and impactful. And that's how I ended up at Clara White with as the vice president over there. And now 10 years at the Boys and Girls Club. So I can sit here and talk about that for 30 minutes at the Boys and Girls Club, the great work we do. But if you would allow me just to give a quick plug on the organization and kind of what we're up to. We have
Sure.
59 locations here in Northeast Florida. We serve Alachua, Clay, St. John's, Duval, and Nassau County, after-school programs, summer programs for kids, really helping them reach their full potential. You've had some of our all-star youth on the show before, and they came out.
Yeah.
And I was like a proud father watching those two young people just talk about their story, their journey, and their passion. So it's really my life's passion work is just giving back and helping people, and especially the youth, which will roll big time when we discuss kind of my priorities and what I want to see with this council and this city here, my year as president.
I'm curious, in addition to kind of starting in the service industry, and, there is a certain fraternity among people who've done that. It is a different kind of work, and it does give you a sort of bottom-up view sometimes of the world, and your place in it because you're working as a server. But, you also have studied things that I think some might surprise some people, given your political posture. You were an African-American studies minor.
Yeah, Florida State University.
You worked for years at the Jacksonville Youth Sanctuary, now the Sanctuary on 8th Street. And of course, your job at Clara White Mission is working with the homeless. You now work with under-resourced kids. And you were actually a Democrat for a number of years before you switched parties. What would you say about your political identity, your political leanings,
Yeah.
and how you ended up kind of where you are right now as a Republican?
Sure. It starts with my dad being in the military. I had a conversation with him one time when there was a presidential election. I asked him who he's voting for, and he said, when you serve in the military, you serve at the pleasure of the president. He's the commander in chief. So I don't actually vote because if I vote for this guy and the other guy wins, I still have to serve that person. So when he retired from the military, he registered to vote and is very active and when he's being civically engaged. So yeah, I was at Florida State University, freshly 18 years old, and you were registering to vote, and the Democrats were giving out free pizza. So that's where I landed. My grandmother was Catholic, and my other grandmother worked for FEMA. So if there was any influence younger in life, it was probably them. But I realized that that party just didn't align with what my ideals were and what my values were when I got a little older. Very personal story. My daughter now, who's 6 years old, she's a rainbow baby. I don't know if you know what that means. That means my ex-wife had a miscarriage before my daughter was born. And once you kind of hear that heartbeat and understand that life was there and then it was lost, due to just circumstances, really just awakened me and my conservative values on pro-life or pro-choice, excuse me, or pro-life, sorry. But But yeah, so that's a touching story. You brought that out of me early. I wonder where else we're gonna go.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear about that. That is a devastating loss for anyone.
Yeah.
Um, I will say my producer just popped in our chat here that it was Caleb and Nico who were Florida Youth of the Year and National Youth of the Year
Mm-hmm.
on representing the Boys and Girls Club, and they really were just extraordinary and impressive young men. We are talking to City Council President Kevin Carrico. If you'd like to join our conversation, you can give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email WJCT at First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. Losing my train of thought there. We've got a
That's
call.
both of us today. See, you're a
Yeah,
professional, so
we,
I feel better about it now.
I'll get in the swing of things. We've got a call from Yasmina in Arlington. Good morning, Yasmina. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Councilman Carrico, your leadership leaves a lot to be desired, and you mentioned pulling on your heartstrings and serving the community, but your relation to the Boys and Girls Club would have been directly impacted by 0138 with KHA funding, and I'm just curious why you weren't the council member who would have proposed the amendment to keeping KHA from being impacted. And I also feel like you're in cahoots with our board members and the different comments you make and how we're moving with this Office of General Counsel.
Thanks, Yasmina. I think referencing there the carve out that Raul Arias created for the Kids Hope Alliance when it came to basically reporting requirements for nonprofits that might be providing aid to immigrants or people who didn't have proper documentation. That bill was ultimately vetoed.
Yeah, fully aware and understand the question, the premise of it. So when I carry the Boys and Girls Club flag down to City Hall, it's challenging sometimes because the Boys and Girls Club, long before I ever arrived, always has gotten dollars from back then the Jacksonville Children's Commission, now the Kids Hope Alliance. So it's a fine line for me to carry that flag and be the one out front leading on issues, and especially when there's going to be dollars appropriated to Kids Hope Alliance that could end up at the Boys and Girls Club. So I was happy that that amendment came forward and happy to support that amendment to carve the Kids Hope Alliance out. But for me to lead that charge and for me to be the one that says, hey, we need to do this, some would find the optics of that maybe just not necessarily the best position for me to be the one. So I was happy that the amendment came out, and I think it protected the kids. And I ultimately did vote for the bill. And as we all know, it was vetoed.
Got a call from Lenny in San Marco. Good morning, Lenny. Go ahead.
Hey, Mr. President, it's Lenny Curry. How you guys doing?
Hey, good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Curry, how are you?
I'm good. I just wanted to call and express my gratitude for your leadership, your fortitude, your clarity of conviction, and it's a breath of fresh air. Looking forward to this year, and thank you for looking out for taxpayers. And as you know, we cut the millage rate as I was leaving office, and I know you're trying to do that again. So just wanted to say thank you and keep the fortitude, man. Proud of you.
Awesome, man. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for checking in. Let's talk a little bit about taxes because you have suggested, pending this review that the budget cycle is going through, that you would like to consider a possible rollback of ad valorem rates and provide some relief, you said, to the people in your district who you think are particularly hurting. District
Absolutely.
4, which is kind of the south side of Jacksonville. This is the kind of thing that I think people like to hear, but measurably might not provide a huge relief. I mean, the rate that the former mayor was just referencing was an eighth, I think, of a mill.
Eighth of a mil. Mm-hmm.
And that's, maybe $1 or $2 a month for the average taxpayer. Is it worth impacting the budget, to the tune of tens of millions of dollars for that kind of, very small savings?
Yeah, I think the taxpayers are stressed right now. They're burdened with inflation. And it sounds insignificant, but if we just continue to tax our citizens and spend every single dollar that we get, then we're never going to come to a place where we can actually take a hard look at our expenses. So the only way to give that taxpayer the relief and make sure we're fiscally responsible is just cut that millage. And an eighth of a millage, I believe, is about $12.5 million out of the budget, the $2.1 billion budget. It's not a lot of money coming out, but it's a signal to our taxpayers that we are conscious of their struggles and we are with them and support them. So it started out as exploratory, but now that I've had time to look through the budget, and I think that the Finance Committee will find some ways to trim back a little bit, and I would love to see that relief go to the taxpayers. Also, don't want to gloss over the fact that Mayor Curry called. I remember when I got in office, it was like I was young, I was in my 30s, and now I'm interacting with the mayor. He seemed like a celebrity then, and the fact that 5 years later I can call him a mentor and someone who I can trust to help me and guide me along the way. I just don't want to gloss over that, and I appreciate the
Do you
call.
do you lean on him a lot? Do you turn to him?
I turn to a lot of people, a lot of mentors, and he is someone that I do talk to probably once a week, and have always grown that relationship since he was the mayor. But I talk to a lot of people, stakeholders in the community. I talk to um, leaders that are in other industries, nonprofit leaders, friends, family. Anyone that'll help me guide it. It's a tough gig. I've only been in the role since July, and this phone starts ringing about 7:30 and doesn't really stop until 7:30 at night. And then your thought space, everything is just consumed with what can you do to move the needle forward and really make Jacksonville better. And we were talking about cutting taxes, and I think that's something that we owe to our citizens.
In terms of talking to people, I know in some recent interviews we've been asked about conversations with the mayor, and it sounds as though until just very recently, you really haven't ever met with the mayor much or talked to the mayor. That I would guess is going to change. Um, but why do you suppose it is during this past year where you've had a fair amount of kind of public disputes with the mayor's office, you haven't had those personal conversations with her?
Yeah, in the past we've disagreed on a few issues, and both have talked about those issues since, and we kind of disagreed publicly, kind of through the media, and both agreed that probably wasn't the best way going forward for us to handle things that we don't disagree on. And we're going to agree on a lot. We're going to agree on things that are going to move Jacksonville forward. We both are passionate about downtown, uh, and I'm looking forward to continued meetings. So we have meetings scheduled every other Monday now. So every Monday before the council meeting. So we've met twice now in this council year, and we're going to continue that open dialogue. And
That seems
um,
smart.
yeah, I made her a promise. I said, "Hey, if I'm going to go out and do anything stupid that upsets you, I'll be sure to shoot you a text first or let you know." She said, "Kevin, I prefer you don't do anything stupid, but that's fair. If you want to give me a heads up, we can agree on that." And of course, football season's coming, so go Knowles.
Right. Well, you guys are both
Yeah.
FSU grads, right? So you've got
hmm
that to bond over. You're both big Jags fans.
Yeah.
What else do you have in common with the mayor, and what do you suppose is like your biggest point of difference?
Well, she ran a nonprofit for a long time. The Donna is a nonprofit and helps raise money for breast cancer awareness, and that's been my career for the past 15, 16 years as a nonprofit leadership management. So just that desire to serve and desire to help and find a need and go out and solve the problem, not be afraid to raise money for people that need help. And our disagreements they tend to be along party lines, and the best way to solve problems and spend money. It tends to be different on different sides of the aisle. Just what we truly believe will answer the questions and help people. I think we want to get to the same place. It's just the way that we get there sometimes is a little different.
I was looking back at some interviews that you'd done where you were talking kind of about conflicts with the mayor, and one of them seemed to kind of one of your points seemed to really circle around the idea of tension between the executive branch and the legislative branch, and you were, kind of emphasizing that exists, that's how it is. It ought to be there in some ways, and then specific to the Meridian Waste dispute, you, you had said to one news outlet, you said it's just about the division of power. I think it's just the administration thinks they can run the city like a dictatorship and forgetting about the legislative branch, which is here elected by the citizens um, as well. I'm curious, just given that statement, kind of what your take is on the current Congress and their seeming acquiescence to President Trump on so many issues. How strong should the legislative branch be?
Yeah, the legislative branch locally controls the laws, the regulations, and controls the finances for the city. It's the checks and balance system. So the executive branch looks at how they want to spend the dollars, and that executive branch is led by one person that's voted on by the city. And then the legislative branch is 19 people that were also voted on by the constituents. So it's a checks and balance system, and really comes down to taxpayer dollars at the end of the day. Obviously, policy, laws, regulations, things of that nature, our land use and zoning code, all those things, that falls to the legislative branch. It's similar to D.C. I don't spend a whole lot of time on national politics. I try to read the clippings and the headlines just so I can follow. But there's so much going on in Jacksonville. There's so much to know and understand to really have the impact that I want to have.
As a lawmaker, though, do you think that our congressional members are doing enough to kind of represent for that branch of government in D.C. right now?
Yeah, I think everybody's working together, and everyone is yeah. There's disagreements just like there are on the local level. But at the end of the day, we're serving the commander in chief on the executive branch, and the Congress has their duty as well, and all the work they do through committees and passing bills. It all has a harmony to work together.
We are talking to Council President Kevin Carrico. You can give us a call or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. We've got an email from Bill saying downtown Jacksonville and its surrounding older neighborhoods have many neglected historic buildings. Not all structures can or should be saved, but many significant properties deserve to avoid demolition by neglect. Do you have a plan to help preserve significant historic structures in our city?
Good question, Bill. So being passionate about downtown, yes, I do love the history of Jacksonville. I love some of the unique architecture that we have downtown. I've also been a part of an organization that had to rehab a historic building back when I was at Clara White Mission. It's called the Henry Landworth Veteran Villas now. It's right behind us. And I was the project manager on that. And it was a real learning experience to know the intricacies of the historic buildings and the costs associated with fixing them. So anytime that we can preserve a building, anytime that the resources will allow us to make one of those historic buildings come back to life, I think it's a beautiful thing. I really do. But at the end of the day, if something is crumbling and falling down, it's going to be a risk to safety of the constituents. Then sometimes there has to be tough decisions, and those buildings might need to come down. But if we can stay in the vein of downtown, that's one thing I'm excited about. We have this corridor now where the new stadium is going to be built, Stadium of the Future. That leads all the way down Bay Street in front of this building, all the way till you get to the UF campus. That's going to be on the other side of downtown, and that's going to be groundbreaking and changing our footprint downtown, bringing those students in, bringing that University of Florida brand, even though it's not the brand I follow on Saturdays and my diploma is hung by. I'm always going to take a shot at the Gators when I can, but I love the idea of that campus. So connecting that campus on Bay Street and the opportunities that we have with some of the lots from the Riverfront Park that's going downtown. It's just been released that the Hard Rock Hard Rock Hotel.
Bite your tongue.
The Hard Rock Hotel.
Everyone's saying it's not going to be a casino. It's just going to be a Hard Rock Hotel and restaurant, right?
That's all that I know. Yeah, that's all that I know. But have that flagship there. Obviously, the Four Seasons is coming out of the ground. So if we continue this momentum of building attractions and building things that people will come to Jacksonville for tourism and come and stay downtown. The number one thing that people visit when they come to Jacksonville is not the beach, it's not the river, it's the St. John's Town Center. They come here to go shopping, and I think they can stay a few more days. They can get that shopping out of the way, and then go downtown and see some amazing growth. And then it starts with people as well, moving people downtown.
There's a lot of businesses on Bay Street that exist, that I'm sure are thrilled for some of these bigger tenants to move in and get going, but they probably also could use some support. What about all of those smaller businesses that are there right now trying to kind of hold it together on a stretch that has a lot of, gap teeth, really?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of empty space right along there.
Yeah, well, the DIA has done a good job at investing in that corridor already. There's a nightclub, a venue that has opened recently, Deck Alive, that has brought some major national acts and artists. And the folks that are behind that have got with the DIA, they're going to redo the Justice Pub and make an Irish pub right down there. So they've got some grants from DIA to help them and assist them with getting that up to par. And there's another concept for kind of a bakery speakeasy on the same corridor there that the same group is behind, and DIA has supported that. So we have the DIA. We've got a brand new executive director, Mr. Collin, who I believe started work yesterday from Baltimore. So he was hired to be the executive director of the DIA. So we've got a good board there. We've got a good program. So I think we just have to work together on what our visions are and what the downtown core needs. People is really the missing piece. We've got over 10,000, I think now. The goal forever was to get to 10,000
residents.
Yeah, residents, people that can live, work, play, shop right here downtown. There's a grocery store coming. We've got development on San Marco and the Brooklyn area. The old Times Union building, that's coming. The old brewery there on the South Bank by Mocha, it's slipping the name, River City Brewing Company. That's coming to be a beautiful multi-use development. So it's here. I don't think we're the city of renderings anymore. Right now, we're going to be the city of construction for a couple of years.
Do you have a sense of a residency number? I know the DIA has used 10,000 as a peg for kind of like, you hit this mark and there is a little bit of self-generating vibrancy. But what do you think is the number that it would take for downtown to feel like a downtown when you're walking around on a Friday afternoon?
If you wanted to look like, an Indianapolis or a Nashville or, one of those kind of competitive cities, and I would say you probably need at least double that.
Yeah. We've got a call from Tom on the west side. Good morning, Tom. Go ahead.
Good morning. I just wanted to say that I believe the city council needs to listen to all its voices, and in that, I think Jimmy Peluso and Matt Carlucci need to be heard and be on committees. I think they serve an important check and balance within the city council and keep the city council from going too far or making mistakes. You need to hear all the voices, otherwise things just spin out of control.
Thanks, Tom. I mean, we should talk about that. So, for people who aren't familiar with kind of the background on that, you appointed Matt Carlucci and Jimmy Peluso to just one committee. The tradition is that all city council members are appointed to two. And so a lot of people saw that as perhaps retribution because they've opposed you on a number of issues, or at the very least, trying to diminish their voice. And of course, since then, Jimmy Peluso had boycotted the initial meeting of TEU, which was the committee he was on, and you removed him from that entirely. So now he's not on any committees.
Yeah, that's right. When you look at going to battle, or we won't do a war analogy, how about a football analogy? When you get a new football coach in any community, or college football, NFL football, that coach always brings people that he wants in the foxhole with him, his offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, people that you've worked with in your career and that share your similar vision. And, at a time like this, this city is on the cusp. We have to be intentional in what we do and what we want. And I want people that are going to be in the foxhole and be on those committees that are going to lead the city in the way that I envision that the city's going to go and come up with the results that I think are going to be the best. And so we have great committee leadership in place.
What was it? Retribution?
Not retribution. It's just, who do you want to work with? Who do you think is going to have your back and get things done? And I have the right as the president to appoint anyone to those committees. And so I appointed people that I thought were going to take care of business, and they didn't make the cut.
So you are probably like 57th city council president for the Jacksonville City Council. There have been a lot of contentious relationships
Yeah,
between
not the first one.
Right. And they have all managed previously to appoint representatives to at least two committees, recognizing that they serve a district, and that they have a constituency that needs a voice in committee decisions, which is where a lot of the big decisions are made.
Yeah, that's not accurate, though. There have been council presidents that have left people off committees and even took them away. I think the latest one would have been Anna Roche.
Well,
and
I
her
think she
treatment
didn't.
of Bill Gulliford.
He said specifically he wasn't going to serve on any committees, and so she didn't appoint him to any. But that's a little different than someone wanting to serve, like Matt Carlucci or Jimmy Peluso, and then not giving them a committee assignment.
Yeah, I don't know if wanting to serve and Jimmy Peluso should match. I mean, he's the one that boycotted his only committee and decided not to show up for work. So
Fair enough. How about Carlucci, though?
Yeah, Carlucci has been appointed to the special committee on downtown. That was something that he wanted and something that I gave him. He's on one of the committees, and the committees are just one part. They're the first step in the legislative process. Every single council member comes to every single meeting and votes on every single bill. So I think the rhetoric of that the voices aren't being heard by them not being on committees. They can come to any committee, they can speak at any committee, and they will vote on every single bill that goes through the legislative process.
We have an email from Tyra on this subject. She says, I live in District 7. City Council Member Jimmy Peluso is my representative. You have given him one committee assignment versus, and as we said, none at this point. She says this undermines his influence and impact on the workings of the city, which then lessens the impact of citizens who live in District 7. So that would be her.
Right. Now, that constituent also has 5 at-large council members that serve at the pleasure of everyone in the city. So I don't want to take away from their role as an at-large member. So you've got 5 members represented that are at-large, and you've got your district member. And there's 5 committees, so your district is never really represented on all of the committees. But your at-large people will fill that gap for you, and Mr. Peluso still has a voice.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more then about your relationship with Matt Carlucci, because there was that very tense meeting where you called the sergeant at arms to remove him from council, which also seemed like a pretty dramatic departure from sort of the way that council typically operates. I've not seen that in my experience where the sergeant at arms was summoned to remove a council member.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the meeting, he had become emotional and upset, and there was a point where I was trying to continue the meeting, and he started walking at me, and I'd rather not, stand up and go chest to chest with one of my colleagues. I think that would have been even a worse look. So I glanced over, I saw the sergeant at arms there, and just asked, "Hey, could you get him out of here? He's violating my space." And that's how we ended that, and we continued with the work of the meeting.
Do you regret the way you handled that at all?
Not at all.
Did you feel threatened by Matt Carlucci?
Did I think he was going to punch me? Probably not, but he was moving in my space and we're in the middle of the meeting. So you have to use the tools that are given to you. And we have a sergeant at arms, and they're there to serve at the pleasure of the chairman. So at that point, I needed him to continue on his way.
Yeah. And so since then, how would you characterize your relationship with him?
With Matt, uh, we don't speak that much, but I have a lot of respect for Matt and his career and everything that he's done to serve this city. So there's no ill will or bad feelings there. But, I'm probably not coming over for Sunday dinner.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about your uh, interest in downtown. We talked a little bit about projects, that have been neglected. The Laura Street Trio. Hesitate to even bring it up because it is
Yeah.
always this perpetual.
A little listener fatigue on that one, huh?
I'm sure, and I'm sure that it's something that the city council is
It's very
equally tired
frustrating.
about
Yeah, it's very
talking
frustrating.
about. But it is, a central focus of the architecture and the preservation wishes of a lot
Yeah.
downtown, and you've been very involved in that as well. So, what's your forecast for that
Sure.
3 buildings? That
I still have a lot of hope for that. As you know, I think it's very important. I call it the linchpin between the kind of commercial district of downtown and the rest of downtown. It's going to be right in the middle of that corridor I just talked about, going from the stadium to the UF grad campus. Laura Street's right in the middle. So some of the renderings and some of the plans that were to take place in that would have been just transformational with a boutique hotel, residences, retail, nice restaurant on the bottom. So those plans didn't come to fruition. The current owner wasn't able to close due to some liens and things like that he had on the property. I do hear that he has found another buyer and is back in the market trying to sell that because it's ultimately headed to foreclosure. Um, the city has a lien against it as well for the back fees that are owed to it. So it's complicated. I don't think anything happens soon, but I think something happens, and I probably won't be able to cut a ribbon or do anything to it while I'm president, certainly, but I will continue to follow it. And
do you think it is going to be saved? That all 3 buildings?
I'm not sure about all three. I know there's been plans that to keep all three, and I've talked to some people that were structural engineers, and I think the bank is 100% safe and sturdy. I think one of the other buildings is good. I think the other one, the
Which is the other?
I get them confused. There's one that's kind of skinnier and kind of looks like it maybe leans a little bit. They're just the cost of preserving that. So it's hard to pencil the deals when someone has to make money on it, right? It's not just sitting there as a museum. The city doesn't own it. So in order for a developer to be profitable, you have to look at the cost analysis and the ROI. So
Do you think the city will once again own it? I mean, the city did own it.
it will go to auction. I mean, I don't think the city wants to own it and be a developer. I wouldn't want to do that. There are plenty of people out in this universe that handle those kind of projects and get development done.
We're talking to City Council President Kevin Carrico. You can reach us at 904-549-2937 or First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. We've got a call from Wells on the south side. Good morning, Wells. Go ahead.
Good morning, Ann. I have 2 questions for President Carrico. The first one is, why do you support and why have you supported the building of a medical examiner's office and a morgue that can hold 300 bodies in a predominantly aging African-American community? And would you support the repurposing of that morgue? My second question is, the council passed a resolution supporting the Zionist government of Israel. I want to know if this council would be willing to pass a resolution calling for the end of the genocide and the using food as weapon of mass destruction against the Palestinian people. Those are my 2 questions.
Thanks,
All right.
Wells. Can we take those in reverse order? Mostly
Sure.
because on the Israel issue, the council did pass this resolution declaring, quote, unequivocal support for Israel.
hmm
And, back then, the death toll in Gaza was about 1,000. It's now about 55,000. Do you think that the city council's support for Israel, the way that it's conducting that war, is still unequivocal?
My support for Israel hasn't wavered. Israel has always been an ally of the United States and a very important peace factor in that region, and so I don't waver on that support one bit. Um,
Would you be willing to denounce what Wells was saying, terming as genocide?
So the protesters have come down and asked for ceasefires and these things that the council get behind something like that. No, I wouldn't support a resolution for a ceasefire. I'm going to stick with my support for Israel.
In terms of the Brentwood Medical Examiner's Office, that's been a source of a lot of controversy. There is going to be, a morgue inside there in addition to, other offices and functions of the Medical Examiner's Office. Um, it's a project well underway, if not complete, right? But uh, have you ever thought that perhaps that wasn't the best place if you had to do it again um, for locating a medical examiner's office?
Sure. So I'll start with I've toured the old medical examiner's office, and it is
Grim.
yes, it's not a good place to go. It's dark, it's dated, it's I don't want to say it's unsanitary because there's still functions happening over there, but it's a rough place, and so we needed a new facility, and the land was found, under the previous administration. I think it was the first land use and zoning meeting that I chaired in this Deegan administration, so it would have been two plus years ago that we had to just vote on the simple rezoning, and a couple people came out and expressed some concern, so I deferred it and sent it back to the administration to work through and talk through best case scenario, worst case scenario, and what they wanted to do and what they needed the council to support. And the price tag on moving it, they had gone so far in the progress of it, and it just didn't add up. So it's there. It's on Gulf Fair. It's right by Idea Schools. I have a Boys and Girls Club a couple blocks down the road on 25th and Boulevard. So I don't view that as a residential corridor. I view it as a commercial corridor. There's gas stations and old hotels and the old Gateway Mall is just right up the road.
I mean, there are homes just right adjacent to it.
Yeah, it backs up to a neighborhood, but it's the beginning of a corridor. So that's the place it landed. The plane is landed. It's going to be open. If there are concerned citizens out there that are upset about it, then I have compassion for that. But sometimes government is about making tough decisions, and we need a medical examiner's office.
In terms of the protests that have been engendered at City Hall, specific to the Israel, Gaza offensive, and a lot of people representing for, the state of Palestine and, asking the council to get involved. I wonder if you regret, the original resolution for kind of engendering all of this. And I'm also curious because I know you've talked a little bit as leader about how you might tighten up council procedures a little bit or maybe crack down a little bit more on protesters at council meetings or decorum at council meetings.
Yeah, decorum is really important, and we're in a professional setting. We have family members and friends that watch the meetings. If my daughter's up on a Tuesday, they'll turn on channel 99 and she'll wave to daddy through the TV. So when you have people that come out and for the most part we haven't had a whole lot of this, but foul language is used and attacks are thrown at members of the body, it doesn't really help anything. It doesn't serve anything. So I will be monitoring that as the president, and people have their freedom of speech, and I honor and cherish that as part of our Constitution. So we want them to come down and speak, but you got to speak with respect. Like we're not up there yelling back and throwing darts and insinuating some of these folks that they tend to get emotional. They're passionate about it. It's part of expressing yourself. But when that expression turns into kind of disrespect or profanity, then that's where I'm going to draw the line as president. And
do you think, though, that the council kind of brought some of that on itself by inserting itself into an international kind of forever war and taking a position on that? Because all of these protests, not all of these protests, but a great number of the people that are speaking at these meetings are speaking specifically in reaction to this council decision to weigh in.
That might have been an unintended consequence of supporting an ally of the United States, which again, I'll stand by our support for that. So I don't think we saw that coming, that we would have 2 years of people coming down and passionately being upset about it. But for every one of those, there's another person that believes the same thing we did when we passed that resolution, I believe 18-1, to continue our support for this country and the nation of Israel.
We've got to wrap. I just would kind of ask you, I think a lot of management and leadership is sort of like based on how you parent. And I'm curious kind of like, what kind of parent are you? How do you think you'll be leading this body?
When you say parent, I'm gonna look at my daughter, and that just makes me melt because anytime anyone talks about her, like I live for that little angel, and so I give her all the love that she could ever need and support her and giving her all the tools she can to be successful. But that 6-year-old doesn't run my house. I do. so so when there's lessons to be learned or there's punishments that need to happen, I do that with love as well. And I won't call it love with Jimmy, but we're friends outside of city council. We saw each other at an event, the week of, kind of this whole thing coming to the media, and we had a friendly talk and laughed at it even a little bit. And so that's an example of just kind of leading strong, not backing down, but still leading with love and compassion.
Well, Council President Kevin Carrico, we appreciate you being here today.
Sure
We hope
thing.
you come back again soon. Thanks for
right.
doing it.
All right, thank you.
All right, up next, Project Cold Case celebrates 10 years of victim advocacy. We talked to the group's founder about how his personal loss continues to animate his work. Welcome back. It's been a decade since Ryan Backman founded Project Cold Case to advocate for victims and families of unsolved murders. In that time, the group has expanded around the globe and helped put dozens of cases to rest. He joins us now to talk about the group's milestone. Ryan Backman, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me again, Ann.
So you've been at this in a professional sense for 10 years now, but your involvement in cold case murders started well before that with your own father's case,
Correct. Yeah.
Clifford Backman.
Almost 16 years ago. October will be 16 years. My dad was murdered here in Jacksonville, Florida. The case remains unsolved and clearly changed the trajectory of my life, my family. You never can prepare for that, no matter how many shows you've watched on TV, no matter how much you think you understand about the judicial system and the criminal justice system. It's never enough. It's a very traumatic journey that never truly ends. And I think that's probably what I'm most proud of in 10 years of work is that this is a journey of healing, and it has always been that for me. And I hope to offer that to the other families that have been impacted by these unsolved murders.
And you have worked an enormous amount of cases at this point, about 1,800 cases in all that you have helped, publicize, get word out, and 70 that have been resolved.
Right.
Can you kind of describe to us what resolution means,
Yeah.
how you describe what that is?
Yeah, it's like a lot of things. The more detail you get into it, the more complicated it becomes. We like to look at things as solved or unsolved, right? And the goal is to solve something. But what we've learned in 70 plus case resolutions is that, what exactly does that look like to a family? What are you searching for in that quest for answers and justice? Because we have had cases where the offender is already dead. And so a family's maybe waiting for their day in court, and then they finally find out who did it, and there's no accountability. The case is resolved, it's closed, you know who did it, but you didn't get that day in court. Or maybe the offender is locked up on other charges, and they're not going to be charged in your loved one's case. And then, of course, we have the arrests and the convictions or the plea deals, that are kind of everybody's universal thought of how the process works, and then unfortunately not included in those 70 is we have, 8 or 9 cases where an offender was arrested and then later the charges were dropped. And now that case goes back into the unsolved pile, with no resolution.
One thing that is very exciting, I think, when a case that has been cold gets reignited in some way, and you're actually involved right now with an international case with
Yeah.
the Jacksonville connection that is really fascinating and perhaps gives the family cause for hope. Can you tell us a little bit about the Grogan case?
Yeah, so the Grogan family, they were a military family. They were stationed in Germany in the early 90s, 1992. There was some domestic situations between the mother and father, and there was also 2 young children in the household, Stefan and Dale Jr. And so one evening, there's a domestic dispute that's so violent and loud that neighbors are awoken and they come to the door to find out what's going on. Um, Dale Sr. answers the door. He says everything is fine. Everybody goes about their business. And it's not recognized until months later that Tina and the 2 boys have not been seen. They're missing, and they've been missing for months. And so imagine 1992, Tina's family has been trying to call. We don't have cell phones. We don't have, unlimited calling, like you're calling long distance. The phone is either busy or nobody answers, or if, Dale Sr. answers, oh, she's not available, nobody's available. So this goes on for months with the family back here in the United States, can't get in touch with their loved ones. And so they have to then navigate a process of going above Dale Sr.'s head in the military to find somebody that can go knock on that door and see where Tina and the boys are. And that's where they discover that they have been missing for months. Their remains have never been found. They have never been discovered, somewhere else, living in, assumed identities. I mean, we're talking about, a couple, a mother and 2 young children in a country where they don't speak the language, where they don't have money, they don't have, car, they don't have access. So it's a criminal act, very likely took place. Well, Dale Sr. got out of the military and he moved to Jacksonville, and he's been living here. And we didn't know that, but a number of years ago, Tina's mom reached out to us. We started raising awareness for Tina and the boys on our website through our social media platforms. And then earlier this year, we got a call from the Army that said, hey, we've reopened this case. We see that you've done a spotlight on this case and interviewed the family. There's a couple errors in your story, like that phone number you have for information. That's no longer good. Can you update the phone number? We did. And it turns out that Dale got involved in a traveling to meet a minor for sex in Nassau County and got arrested in January. And when he got arrested, he made some statements to somebody that were enough that Nassau County Sheriff's Office called the Army investigators and they reopened the case. So they have been coming into town. They've come to our office, met with us. They've, used our office as kind of a base camp to when they're traveling to do interviews and meet with witnesses, potential witnesses, and reopened, a 30+ year investigation, that we didn't know had a Jacksonville tie until there was an arrest in another case.
It is very exciting. And we should say that the charges that brought him in Nassau County, these, to meet a minor for sex, those have been dropped. But there's momentum behind this murder investigation. We've just got about 15 seconds.
Yeah, the charges got upgraded to federal charges. So he's still charged with traveling to meet a minor, but federally, not state.
Okay.
The state charges were dropped, but they're picked up federally.
Gotcha. And then the murder investigation continues at pace.
Correct.
We are talking to Ryan Backman of Project Cold Case. It is their 10th anniversary. We're going to take a 2-minute break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
The Florida Theater presents The Psychology of Cults, a live event exploring how cults form, why people join, and what it takes to leave. Wednesday, October 8th at 8 p.m. Information at floridatheater.com. Museum of Science and History's new exhibition, Mosh Archives, The Story of Us and You, steps you into a treasure trove of memories, now through August 31st. Tickets and information at themosh.org.
Artists set up an apartment inside.
What happens when 8 friends secretly build an apartment inside a mall? Secret Mall Apartment is the wild, true story of defiance, creativity, and 2 tons of cinder block, told through footage they captured while living undetected in a Rhode Island mall for 4 years. Join us Wednesday, August 6th for Film at WJCT Studios. Doors open at 6:30, film at 7. Get tickets now at wjct.org/film.
From January 6th to today, I have felt a profound obligation to speak.
That's retired conservative federal judge J. Michael Ludig. He's called the Trump administration, quote, a reign of lawless aggression by a tyrannical wannabe king.
America is in a crisis, a constitutional crisis.
Judge Ludig joins us on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
Floods are hitting harder and catching more Americans off guard. Outdated FEMA maps and insurance gaps are leaving millions exposed as extreme weather worsens and disaster response lags. What will it take to keep people safe? Nationwide flood preparedness, next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I've been speaking to Ryan Backman. He is the founder and executive director of Project Cold Case. And he is also leading an organization that's celebrating its 10th anniversary. I want to talk about that event in just a minute. But, we were just talking before the break about this case that has been reopened that seems in some ways like it might have been predicated on domestic violence. And, data show that about 1 in 5 homicide victims are killed by an intimate partner. It's much more common than this sort of stranger danger murder that people are often apprehensive about. And yet it is hard, I think, for people to understand that. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you've done on those cases and also trying to highlight that fact?
Yeah, well, one of the things with those cases are a lot of times the offender is known, so they don't go cold. That was what was very unique about this Grogan case was they were missing before anybody knew. And so while everybody has suspected and had a good idea that the husband was involved, there has not been the physical evidence or even the bodies recovered. In many domestic situations, the offender is known. Sometimes they turn the weapon on themselves, like we've seen, even here recently in the last few days in the surrounding counties. And then, or they're known right away, And so we don't have a lot of those in in the cases that we work with families. But they do come up, and they usually come up in situations where the victim is missing first, and then hopefully recovered at a later date, and then you can move forward with a prosecution.
This could be a tough case, though. I mean, it's international jurisdiction. It's evidence, as you say, what would exist would be decades old.
Right, and they didn't go in there. There wasn't a crime scene that they went to. It had months to clean up and get rid of any evidence. And without bodies, it's clearly really hard to prosecute a case. It's not impossible, but it's much more difficult, So I think, I don't want to speak for the family, even though we've had a lot of intimate conversations. They want to find Tina and the boys. They want to be able to bring them home and give them a proper burial and know that they're not just in the woods somewhere,
Yeah. So let's talk about this upcoming event because 10 years is quite a milestone for an organization like yours. I mean, you now, you're based here, but you now are in 48 countries and territories, around the world.
Yeah.
And so your work footprint has expanded a lot
It has.
in that time.
It's shocking how many families are just looking for somebody to talk to and looking to share, their experience and their journey. And of course, they want answers and they want resolution, but they also want to heal. And they want to be able to sit around the table and laugh and joke and enjoy life without feeling guilty about it because their loved one's gone, And that's what we want to do.
And the resources that you offer go beyond just helping to platform their family's loss. I mean, and that is a big part of it because
Sure.
people do like to see that their victim has not been forgotten.
Correct.
But what are some of the resources that you provide for them?
Well, we do support meetings monthly, both in person for our local families and virtual for families, wherever they are. And we have families from all over the country and beyond that join those monthly support meetings. But we can also meet with them and kind of guide them on what the expectations should be and what they can do to advocate for their own loved one, including setting up a meeting with the investigator, the right questions to ask, the things that will help advance, the investigation, hopefully. whether a case is active, inactive, whether there's, any new technology out there that may be applied to any evidence that is in the case. And these are things that the families don't really understand because it's not like CSI on TV.
Right. It's so important. I mean,
yeah.
that's information that you don't know unless you kind of know it and have been
Exactly.
through it.
Exactly. And we have after 10 years, we have a large network of investigators, forensic scientists, anthropologists. Our reach goes really far in being able to get answers to some of those questions.
So the celebratory event is August 7th at Casa Marina Hotel and Restaurant in Jax Beach from 6 to 9. And it's a free event, but it is also a fundraiser. Can you kind of
Correct, yeah.
explain what people can expect?
Yeah, so we're going to have a silent auction. We'll have hors d'oeuvres and drinks. It is free. You don't need a ticket, but you come in and you'll have a slideshow about 10 years of the work that we've done and some of the things that we've accomplished. We'll have a meal. We'll have dinner. And we'll provide a little program where we talk about some of the things that we've done and accomplished and some of the hurdles we've had to overcome in 10 years and how funding is, always one of those things that nobody likes to talk about, but is always the biggest hurdle. And so we'll try to raise money and, we're not charging to get in so that they can hopefully use that savings to bid on items or make a donation and support us moving forward.
And I'm guessing, although it's free, you might be wanting people to RSVP or at least let you know.
Yeah. I mean, we have a Facebook page. It's the Decade of Hope fundraiser, and it's connected to the Project Cold Case Facebook page where you can RSVP. We have a number that we expect that's traditionally after, 10 years of having these events. We know how many people typically show up and we're prepared for, but we would love the public to come out if they don't know who we are, don't understand what we do, and then enjoy. We're also going to host a family picnic on Saturday for the families of the victims because they're always invited to our events, but we don't ask them to donate. We're not asking them for money. So we were hosting a separate picnic for all those families in town that we serve on Saturday at Austin Park over off Monument Road.
All right. Well, Ryan Backman, congratulations on 10 years at
Thank
Project
you.
Cold Case. Thanks for the work that you do.
Thank you, Ann.
All right. And thank you for listening. That's our program. If you have comments or suggestions, you can send either to First Coast Connect at WJCT.org. And if you missed anything, you can listen to our rebroadcast at 8 o'clock tonight, or you can find our entire archive on your favorite podcast platform and at WJCT.org. Join us tomorrow when we preview a series of conversations about how the community should respond to a viral video of police punching a motorist. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjax.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Museum of Science and History's new exhibition, Mosh Archives, The Story of Us and You, steps you into a treasure trove of memories, now through August 31st. Tickets and information at themosh.org.